Tonight, we need to talk about Russia's war in Ukraine. And specifically, we need to talk about how it's being powered. Not just by oil or propaganda or, honestly, a frankly terrifying level of nationalistic fervor, but by something you might even have in your own home, a Wi-Fi router. That's right, because it turns out that a multi-billion-dollar American tech company, one whose products are supposed to connect us, may actually be helping a rogue state disconnect Ukrainians from their lives, permanently. And you know, the worst part is, they've been told about it. It's a story about drones, denial, and a corporate indifference so profound, it would make a sociopath blush. The central allegation is as simple as it is horrifying. Ubiquiti, a major US technology firm, is a key supplier to the Russian military. Their advanced communications equipment, the very gear that is under strict US sanctions, is allegedly being used to guide the drone strikes that have terrorized Ukrainian cities and slaughtered civilians. Think about that for a second. The same brand that might be helping you stream the latest season of a show about dragons is allegedly helping Vladimir Putin wage a war of aggression. It's a grotesque fusion of the mundane and the monstrous, where Silicon Valley innovation becomes a weapon in the hands of a war machine. This isn't some wild conspiracy theory cooked up in the dark corners of the internet. This is the result of a months-long investigation by the journalists at Hunterbrook Media, who followed the supply chain from American warehouses all the way to the Ukrainian front lines. It's a journey that reveals a system of willful blindness, corporate negligence, and blatant sanctions evasion. The United Nations has called Russia's drone attacks potential crimes against humanity. And yet, evidence suggests an American company's hardware is the backbone of those very operations. It's a scandal hiding in plain sight, tucked away in the fine print of customs declarations and corporate SEC filings. And what makes this story truly infuriating is the scale. We are not talking about a few stray routers falling off the back of a truck. We are talking about a massive, sustained flow of high-tech equipment into Russia that didn't just continue after the 2022 invasion, it surged. It's a story where sanctions designed to cripple Russia's military might have become little more than a minor inconvenience, easily sidestepped by a network of shady middlemen. So tonight, let's unpack how a company built on connecting the world ended up connecting Russian missiles to their targets. So, who is the company at the heart of this geopolitical nightmare? It's called Ubiquiti, and it's a $30 billion tech giant you might not have heard of, but whose products are, well, everywhere. Their founder and CEO is a man named Robert Pera, a reclusive billionaire with a net worth that rivals the GDP of a small nation. And if his name sounds vaguely familiar, it might be because when he's not running his tech empire, he owns an NBA team, the Memphis Grizzlies. Yes, that's right. The man whose company is allegedly equipping the Russian army also signs the checks for a team with a dancing bear mascot. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a Serbian-made combat knife. Robert Pera is not your typical press-hugging tech CEO. He's famously private, rarely gives interviews, and seems to prefer the quiet hum of servers to the roar of a crowd. But his company, Ubiquiti, makes a lot of noise in the tech world. They specialize in high-performance networking technology, selling everything from simple home routers to sophisticated long-range antennas that can beam a Wi-Fi signal for miles. They are beloved by tech enthusiasts for their powerful, affordable, and easy-to-use gear. That plug-and-play simplicity, as we'll see, is exactly what makes their products so dangerously appealing to an army on the move. The business model is key here. Ubiquiti doesn't really sell directly to people. Instead, they rely on a sprawling global network of nearly 600 third-party distributors and resellers. This structure has made them incredibly profitable by keeping their own overhead low. But it also creates a massive accountability gap. It allows the company to, in essence, wash its hands of where its products end up. It's like being an arms dealer who only sells to sporting goods stores in active war zones, and acts shocked when the bullets start flying. This distribution model is the perfect architecture for plausible deniability. And this brings us back to the uncomfortable juxtaposition of basketball and battlefields. While one of the Grizzlies' star players was famously suspended for flashing a toy gun on social media, the team's owner is facing allegations of enabling a real-life war that has killed hundreds of thousands of people. It's a staggering double standard. One man gets publicly shamed for pantomiming violence, while the other, whose company's products are allegedly instrumental in actual violence, has remained shrouded in silence. It seems that in the world of professional sports, some fouls are just bigger than others. To prove that these weren't just isolated incidents, the investigators at Hunterbrook Media did something brilliantly simple. They pretended to be the bad guys. With one of their reporters fluent in Russian, they went undercover, posing as procurement officers for the Russian military. They started contacting vendors inside Russia, asking to buy the very Ubiquiti equipment that is explicitly banned for export. You might expect them to be met with caution or outright refusal. Instead, they were met with open arms and price lists. It was less like a clandestine arms deal and more like ordering a pizza.
Yes, we can sell you the sanctioned equipment, but because this is, illegal, the minimum order is $100,000. That's just to make it worth the risk.
Let me repeat that. They weren't just willing to break international sanctions. They had incorporated the illegality into their business model. It was a crime-as-a-service offering. Other vendors went even further, promising to arrange delivery directly to the front lines in Ukraine within days. But the most damning part of the investigation didn't happen in Russia. It happened right here, in the United States.
We posed as Russian buyers and reached out to an official US-based Ubiquiti distributor called Multilink Solutions. At first, they agreed to ship the sanctioned goods directly to Moscow.
Actually, after checking, we can't send the equipment directly to Russia. But if you want, we can ship it to Turkey, and from there you can handle the rest. It's really not a problem.
This is a classic textbook method for sanctions evasion, and an official American distributor was suggesting it on a recorded call. It's the corporate equivalent of saying, "I can't sell you this gun, but my friend Turkey over there will leave it on the bench for you if you leave the cash." This single conversation revealed the rot at the core of the distribution network. It showed that even when the rules are known, there is a clear, established, and even recommended pathway to get around them. The system isn't just broken, it's actively conspiring against itself. So what is this magical equipment that the Russian army is so desperate to get its hands on? We're talking about products with names like the Air Max Power Beam and the Air Max Nano Station. They don't sound particularly threatening, more like something you'd buy at Best Buy to get a better signal in your backyard shed. But on the battlefield, these devices are game changers. They are high-powered, long-range radio antennas and bridges that can extend a network connection over vast distances, creating powerful, makeshift communication networks in places where none exist. And for a modern army, communication is everything. The primary use for this gear in Ukraine is for drone warfare. Russia is using a terrifying variety of drones, from small, commercially available models modified to drop grenades, to larger, purpose-built attack drones. To be effective, these drones need a stable, long-range connection to their operator for navigation, targeting, and streaming live video. Ubiquiti's products provide exactly that. A Ukrainian communications officer interviewed for the investigation estimated that a staggering 80% of the Russian radio bridges they've captured on the battlefield are made by Ubiquiti. He called them essential, stating there is simply no alternative because they are so reliable and easy to set up. That ease of use is a crucial feature. Soldiers in the field don't have time to read a 300-page instruction manual or configure complex network settings. Ubiquiti's gear is famously plug-and-play. You can take two of their antennas, point them at each other from miles apart, and create a high-speed data link in minutes. This allows Russian units to set up command posts far from the front lines and still maintain perfect control over drones flying deep into Ukrainian territory. It allows them to see what the drone sees, in real time, as they guide it toward a hospital, an apartment building, or a fleeing family. This turns a piece of commercial-grade IT equipment into a vital component of a modern weapon system. It's the link between the soldier's joystick and the explosive payload. Without that stable, long-range connection, the drone is blind and useless. Ubiquiti's technology provides the eyes and ears for Russia's remote-controlled war, enabling strikes with a precision that makes their brutality all the more efficient. The Air Max Power Beam isn't just beaming Wi-Fi, it's beaming death from above, and business, it seems, is booming. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022, the United States and its allies responded with what were supposed to be crippling sanctions and export controls. The goal was to cut off Russia's access to the Western technology its military depends on. Items like Ubiquiti's long-range radios, which are considered dual-use goods, meaning they have both civilian and military applications, were placed under a strict ban. So, the flow of these products into Russia should have stopped, right? Well, you'd think so. But the data tells a very different story. Hunterbrook's analysis of Russian customs data is nothing short of damning. In the 2 years the invasion, about $16.9 million worth of Ubiquiti products were shipped to Russia. In the 2 years the invasion and the implementation of sanctions, that number didn't just fail to drop. It skyrocketed by 66% to at least $28 million. And that's just the declared value. The real figure is likely much higher. This wasn't a trickle, it was a flood. The sanctions weren't a wall, they were a welcome mat. The very products banned to stop the war were flowing in faster than ever before. What's more, the shipments included brand new Ubiquiti models that were released the export bans began. This isn't a case of old stock being cleared out. This is proof of an active, ongoing supply chain that is feeding Russia's war machine with the latest and greatest American technology. The data shows a clear pattern. Direct shipments from the US and Europe stopped, as you'd expect. But they were immediately replaced by a massive surge in shipments from a cast of intermediary countries. Suddenly, dozens of shell companies and third-party resellers in places like Turkey, Hong Kong, and the United Arab Emirates became major hubs for Ubiquiti gear destined for Moscow. Shipments from Turkey alone increased by over 1,000%. This is the exact sanctions evasion route that the American distributor, Multilink Solutions, recommended to the Undercover reporter. The data proves this isn't just a hypothetical loophole, it's a well-trodden superhighway for banned goods. While the world was watching in horror, a global network of distributors was busy rerouting shipments and cashing in. The sanctions created a logistical headache, but for these middlemen, it was also a golden business opportunity, and they seized it with both hands. The story gets even darker when you look at who, exactly, is using this equipment. This isn't just about the Russian army in general, it's about specific military units that have been accused by the international community of committing some of the most horrific war crimes of the 21st century. Through open-source intelligence, including social media posts from Russian soldiers and pro-war fundraising groups, Hunterbrook was able to link Ubiquiti equipment directly to at least 9 different Russian military units implicated in atrocities. This gear isn't just on the battlefield, it's in the hands of monsters. Take, for example, the 76th Guards Air Assault Division. This is the unit that occupied the town of Busha, leaving behind a trail of mass graves and executed civilians that shocked the world. They are one of the most notorious units in the entire Russian army, and they are using Ubiquiti equipment. Photos and videos show fundraising groups, one of which is run by a convicted terrorist, proudly delivering Ubiquiti antennas to soldiers from this very division. This hardware is being delivered with celebratory posts to the same people accused of binding civilians' hands and shooting them in the back of the head. Another unit identified is the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade, which has been accused of torture and summary executions in towns across Ukraine. They too have been photographed with Ubiquiti's long-range communication gear, often crowdfunded by Russian nationalist groups who post pictures of the boxes as proof of their patriotic support. Each photo is a receipt, documenting the journey of an American product from a warehouse to a war crime. The slogans of these fundraising campaigns often boast of providing their boys with the eyes they need to win. Eyes provided by a US company. This provides the final damning link in the chain. It connects a corporate headquarters in New York to the mud and blood of the Ukrainian front. When a company claims it has no visibility into its end users, this is the reality of what that blindness enables. It enables units accused of mass murder to enhance their lethality. It means that the profits generated from the sale of an Air Max antenna in a warehouse in Dubai might be directly tied to the destruction of a school in Kharkiv. The abstract language of supply chains and distribution networks evaporates in the face of this reality. So, what does Ubiquiti have to say about all this? Well, mostly nothing. But their public filings with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission are incredibly revealing. In them, the company states, and this is a direct quote, "We do not have any visibility on the location or extent of purchases of our products." This is their official legal defense ignorance. They are essentially arguing that because they sell through middlemen, they are not responsible for what those middlemen do.
It's the corporate equivalent of putting your hands over your eyes and yelling, "You can't see me!" It's a strategy that might work in a game of peekaboo with a toddler, but it's a pathetic excuse when you're dealing with international law.
Legal experts interviewed by Hunterbrook were quick to point out that this defense is paper-thin. U.S. export controls operate on a principle of strict liability. This means that ignorance is not a valid legal excuse. If your products end up in a sanctioned country, you are responsible, period. The government doesn't have to prove you intended for it to happen. They only have to prove that it happened.
And Ubiquiti has been caught red-handed before. In 2014, U.S. authorities fined the company over $500,000 for reckless disregard of sanctions after its products were diverted to Iran.
Back then, CEO Robert Pera promised things would change, stating, "It can't happen again. If it does, I'll be in a lot of trouble."
Well, Robert, it's happening again, and it's happening on a much grander scale.
According to a former employee, Ubiquiti's compliance department has been described as a one-man shop without any automated systems for tracking products. The same employee claimed the CEO just doesn't care about all of the extra garbage, with garbage in this context apparently meaning preventing your products from being used in war crimes. The attitude seems to be that compliance is an expensive annoyance, not a fundamental corporate responsibility.
The most galling part is that Ubiquiti does have the ability to track its products when it wants to. Around September 2025, the company appeared to place an IP-based block on firmware updates for users in Russia, proving they can identify the location of their devices.
Furthermore, every device has a unique serial number and MAC address that could, in theory, be traced back to the original distributor it was sold to. The company has the tools to investigate its own supply chain. It has the power to identify the bad actors. The evidence suggests it simply chooses not to. The undercover work and data analysis reveal a clear, repeatable playbook for getting sanctioned American tech to the Russian front lines. It's a cynical dance of distributors, shell companies, and complicit logistics firms, all profiting from the continuation of the war. The system is so effective because responsibility is diffused across so many different players, allowing each one to claim they were only a small, ignorant part of a much larger chain. It's a conspiracy with no designated leader, just a shared financial incentive to look the other way.
The first step in the playbook is the rerouting. Official distributors in the US and Europe, like the one that offered to ship to Turkey, simply send the products to a friendly intermediary country. These hubs, like the UAE, Kazakhstan, or China, have lax export controls and are happy to serve as a laundromat for sanctioned goods.
Once the Ubiquiti products arrive in, say, a warehouse in Istanbul, their American or European origin is effectively washed away. They are now just goods being transshipped from Turkey, and a new set of paperwork is created for their final journey to Russia.
The second step involves the buyers inside Russia. These aren't shadowy spies. They are often legitimate-seeming IT companies that openly advertise their ability to procure sanctioned goods. Companies like Comptech, the one that quoted a $100,000 minimum, act as the final link. They handle the import from the intermediary country and then distribute the hardware within Russia. Some of them sell directly to the military, while others supply the vast network of civilian fundraising groups that are crowdfunding the war effort, one antenna at a time.
The final, and perhaps most crucial part of the playbook, is the manufacturer's willful blindness. By refusing to implement robust tracking for its products, Ubiquiti creates the perfect environment for this shadow market to thrive. They could require their distributors to report the end users for high-risk products. They could use serial numbers to audit their supply chains and cut off distributors who are caught selling to suspicious buyers. They could take legal action against Russian companies illegally using their trademarks. They do none of it. Their inaction is not a bug in the system. It is the feature that allows the entire scheme to work. So why does any of this matter? It matters because this isn't just a story about supply chains and corporate filings. It is a story about human lives. Every drone that is successfully guided to its target using a Ubiquiti radio is a potential tragedy. It's a destroyed home, a grieving family, a child who will grow up without a parent. The convenience and profitability of a hands-off distribution model are being paid for in Ukrainian blood. The extra garbage that Ubiquiti's CEO allegedly doesn't care about includes the mangled bodies of civilians in a bombed-out apartment block. It also matters because it exposes the weakness of our global sanctions regime. These rules are put in place to exert pressure on aggressive nations without resorting to direct military conflict. They are one of the most powerful tools of statecraft we have, but they are meaningless if corporations can ignore them with impunity. When a company can get caught violating sanctions, pay a small fine, promise to do better, and then allegedly go right back to doing the exact same thing on an even larger scale, it makes a mockery of the entire system. It signals to bad actors everywhere that the rules are optional. This is where we come in. The silence from Ubiquiti, from Robert Pera, and from the NBA has been deafening. They are hoping this story will just blow over. We cannot let that happen. Public pressure is the only thing that can force a change in behavior when legal and financial incentives have clearly failed. They need to be asked, repeatedly and publicly, why are your products being used to kill Ukrainians? What are you doing to stop it? And why did your shipments to Russia increase after the war began? These are not difficult questions. Ultimately, this is a call for accountability. Accountability for Ubiquiti, which must be forced to clean up its supply chain. Accountability for its distributors, who knowingly flout the law. And accountability for its billionaire owner, who is profiting from a war while also owning a beloved public institution. This investigation has dragged the ugly truth into the light. Now, we have to decide what we're going to do about it. Because as long as companies can profit from turning a blind eye to war, the wars will never end.